being in coma with in the ICU. Weeks later, I woke up without having no memory of what had happened. But the major part of it was the organ failure, which was my lung had collapsed due to it turning into sepsis, which is quite a massive, dangerous illness. It gives you a lot of perspective, and I think I personally connect because
Today, I'm joined by Sam Greene, and we will be talking about personal growth and overcoming obstacles. Hi, Sam. Welcome back to my show.
hey, how's it going? It's our third time together.
Yes, absolutely. We spoke a lot about the personal growth and the challenges we faced in our lifetime. So it's an absolute pleasure to discuss these topics today with you. What challenges you had in your life which made you a stronger person?
Big question because we can go on for 20 hours straight. Just like most people, I think I've had my fair share of challenges, whether that comes to, um, fighting a case for my son for 2 years and then, having success in the end by sticking through the fight through like toughest times or massive health crisis, being in coma with in the ICU for considerable time, to financial crisis post COVID, during COVID. And I think it's just a combination of everything, but yeah, I think it gives you a lot of perspective, and I think I personally connect because all of those situations have actually made me quite a strong person, uh, and it gives you a lot of perspective because just like without having to go into too much detail because it's so long, each one of those situations, that when you're not able to, for example, see or breathe without machines, there are so many people who go through that or a lot worse. If you're able to see through that time and come to the other side, you develop a lot of perspective, and perspective is incredible because you really do truly start to realize every single thing that we should be grateful for. There's a lot of talk online with like online gurus, and people have written a lot about this, and now it's become quite trendy to actually say this: go to the gym, workouts, get stronger, and pain is good, and X, Y, and Z. But I think the deeper the pain is that you've gone through, the deeper the situation is, the bigger the problem that you've gone through, learn through it, the bigger the perspective you have. So yeah, I think number of difficult situations, but very grateful now looking back for every single one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. When you actually told me about your situation 2023 when you were involved in car accident and you actually fell into coma, I was totally shocked because it's not something happens very often. But do you think it was due to the accident?
It wasn't. So car accident was actually not the main factor. It was the factor that I had so much stress during that time due to a number of factors that I'm not able to discuss too much in open space. But it was relating to my universe, who's my son Marcus, and it was very challenging. So my stress levels were through the roof. That was a combination of just some of the other factors. Everyone's got stresses. Someone's got big problems, someone's got small problems, but everyone's got problems. I think the only people who don't have any problems are dead people. So through that time, my immune system was so heavily hit that when I actually had when I called the ambulance, when they turned up, they were like, your breathing capacity is like down to 20%, and we need to wrap you and tag you and take you in immediately. So for me, it was like, I've seen this in the movies or perhaps seen it on the street, ambulance with blue lights. But this time I was inside one, and it was a shock to my system. I was just panicking. I had no idea what was going on. And then weeks later, I woke up without, having no memory of what had happened. But the major part of it was the organ failure, which was my lung had collapsed due to it turning into sepsis, which is quite a massive, like a dangerous illness and disease.
Do you remember the moment when you going to coma?
No, of course not, because your memory takes a massive hit. Some things you remember, some things you don't. Even till today, like a year and a half later, I don't actually remember most things that happened post being in the ambulance. I only remember waking up, which was like weeks later. But when you have an organ failure, you have three reasonable outcomes or potential outcomes. One is organ transplant. Second is you remain in coma and you're basically are being kept alive with machines. Third is going to be that you, by some miraculous, uh, you know, situation, your body it recovers in time in order for you to be woken up and in time. Because if you remain in that situation whilst everything is shut off for foreseeable future or unknown amount of time, your body very quickly deteriorates daily. So for that reason, I'm very like incredibly lucky, super grateful for, like, to be perfectly honest, like, NHS staff, they get like bad rep all the time, but to be perfectly honest, in that ICU, NHS nurses, doctors, they were absolute angels. Like, they saved my life, and I'm like here because of them, and also God and people who were praying for me. So yeah, it was like a transformative experience for sure.
It is an incredible story because it is not something I hear in day-to-day life,
Mhm.
because you normally hear it on the news. So that's why when you actually told me to my face, I was literally shocked, and emotions started coming to me just to try to imagine what you had to go through. Obviously, you woke up, and then what was next when you woke up?
What was next was a series of very challenging situations, because the battle really started when I woke up, because nothing in my body worked. I couldn't lift a finger, couldn't move my toes, and nothing worked. Like, completely disabled from head to toe. There are like, number of tubes through my nose, holes in my neck going straight down to my heart. Literally had holes all over my body, and like I was literally connected to like, 20 different machines at the same time. The situation was that I had no choice, had to recover fast. I had no choice because I had some battles coming ahead, which didn't actually just involve me, and involved my son, and from legal standpoint, and some other stuff that was just, I knew that wasn't the end. That wasn't going to be the, my remission, recovery, rehab was anticipated to be, by doctors, specialists, all the surgeons there. They said it's going to take you up to 6 months to remain in the hospital and then go to a rehab ward after this, after ICU, spend about 6 months there and X, Y, and Z. But to me personally, I had to get out in a couple of weeks as soon as I woke up. But it was a challenge because I couldn't even move my finger. Hence the recommended recovery process and protocol they recommended. But I think if for me, it was like replaying everything in a way that how do I actually make like 1% improvement on, like, let's pick 5 moments today and let's make 1% improvement across like 5 areas. So would that be like try to move a finger one day, try to move your toe one day, try to look left or right. It was literally that. And then gradually, days later, managed to, move my hand a little bit. And then I started doing reps with trying to move my toes. And I was like, constantly telling myself that, okay, today, right now, we have to basically do 10 reps of moving the toe, right? Literally wiggling the
Yeah.
toe of 10 reps. And that was exhausting, to be honest, because I had no, like, every time I would wiggle my toe, I would get a cramp in my leg. So
Yes.
it's very difficult to describe this because it's also the environment that you're in. Although everyone is incredibly loving, supportive, and very caring in the ICU, like doctors, nurses, like, I cannot speak any highly of how well I was looked after. But the issue was that I had a guy next to me, like an old guy, who was like days away from dying. I had this guy who's just passed away and he's just been taken away. I had a woman opposite me who left the hospital, came back, and she was now like on life support, in critical condition, right? And then ICU was connected to this other very scary place I never actually saw, but all I could hear were just screams of people who were going through excruciating surgical processes and who were either having like being very close to death or just going through that journey of like literally ending there. So that the whole situation and being there day and night, not able to sleep, not even being able to stay up because it's you're so exhausted. That was very challenging. But you have to you just got and I'm saying this is not like a motivational like situation at all. It fucking sucks and it's horrible. And there were loads of moments when I was just like, I wasn't talking to anyone, but there were loads of moments when I was just like, in tears. And I was like, I'm being a liability for these people here. I can't even move my finger. Life has just collapsed. Self-employed, not even able to work. Everything had just come to a pause, and it was just very
Yes.
dark time mentally. So I think for me, it was a physical and mental battle combined together, which was really, really taxing. I was losing roughly about 2 kgs per day on my weight. So I went in 93, 94 kgs, about 10 to 11% body fat. So I was quite like in a good physical peak condition.
Yeah.
And and when when I woke up, I was 58 kilograms. So I was half my body weight. So pretty much all I was is bones and skin left. So in that situation it was very challenging. But again, it's okay. Any people who are out there who might be going through this situation, I don't know who is, who might be going through worse situation, who might be actually going through a different situation, which is different type of difficult. You have to try to see through it and accept the fact that there are moments of that journey. Most of the moments of that journey are going to absolutely suck. I think it's very easy to fall into a mindset in that situation. Why me? And you're gonna fall into a mindset, a victim mindset. Why me? Why is this happening to me? Why did this happen to me? But that's not how the universe works, That's not how the world works because, there are children being, like bombed in different places in the country than in the world. There are much bigger things happening. There are much more chronic illnesses, like little children gets diagnosed with cancer all the time. So why me never actually helps. If you want to give it a good like narrative, if there is one narrative that you can give it that can potentially help, that actually helped me is the reason why me is because maybe some power, the universe, the God, wants me to actually become the example of how I'm going to go through this suck, may or may not come out, about how this journey is going to be and what you do in that journey. And if you're in a position to actually share that situation, that might actually help someone who is subsequently going through a different situation, which is sucky, or to give some level of perspective to people who don't have it, who haven't actually suffered.
So in those moments when you had to go through quite a lot of challenges, what kept you going? What you had in your mind?
I think two things. Number one was my son, for sure. I didn't even FaceTime him. I think I FaceTime him once whilst I was in the ICU, and it was for like very like 5 seconds, like probably about like a minute. And I was trying to hide my face because it was like full of tubes, and he was missing me so much, and he wasn't in the country. He was on holidays, and immediately he was like, oh, why do you look like that? And obviously little baby is asking questions. He was around like under 4 years old that time. So I knew that I basically have to come out, and I have to do do right by my son, and I have to be there for him, and I have to be with him. That was my personal driver, quite big driver. It was quite like phenomenal because My best friend tells me this. I don't remember this, by the way, at all, but he tells me that when you were actually unconscious, so you were gone, like you were connected to machines and stuff like that. And he had come to the hospital because he obviously he found out and stuff, and he was with me. And he actually whispered to me that, Sam, just want you to know Marcus is okay, right? My son. And I was like, at that moment, I was just like, apparently, like tears came out of my eyes, completely unconscious, knocked out. And that's when I just completely, like, I was just gone. And it was like 100% machines at that point. So I think even being subconscious, I was constantly in this frame that, I have to be there for my son. I want to be there. I know like our bond, our connection. So I think even if people who don't have someone, think about your purpose in life. A lot of people are struggling to find that right now because I think people are like, I don't know what my purpose is. Is it to be a father? Is it to be a mother? Is it to be a daughter? Is it to be a girlfriend, boyfriend? Is it to actually serve people? I don't know what your purpose is. I can't tell you. That's something for you to figure out. But I know that my purpose is has not been served. When I was actually completely like unconscious, and I I feel like I had this moment. I just knew that that wasn't my time, so I had to just respect that and roll with it and take it forward. Not everyone is that lucky, and it's very scary because when you're seeing a woman dying opposite you who had what you have and came back to the hospital a week later and is now dying. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
very scary situation. But yeah, it's all God's plan. You just have to try to grab onto something and push
Yes.
forward. Grab onto whatever your purpose is. It could be your family, it could be your boyfriend, girlfriend, could be your wife, could be your purpose, could be your work, could be a commitment you made to someone, to really leave that footprint. And you may be it may be the fact that you already have, um
Yes.
and you're okay with it. That's totally fine. But I think for me that wasn't the case. For me, I was like, I've got so much to do. And luckily, through my journey, I was supported by the God, the universe, the creator, to actually come out the other side.
Yeah, it's incredible. You recently recommended me a book, Obstacle is the Only Way by Ryan Holiday,
Mhm.
which I read it without stopping because it was such an easy read, but at
Yeah.
the same time, very, very strong message. If I can communicate it to you, is that obstacles are actually good for you. What you had to go through is not very nice. However, it made you a stronger person, more resilient, and more compassionate. Do you think it is actually relatable, that book and your situation?
Yeah, 100%. I even like, back when so we both love reading books, which is great. That's why probably we connect, because the more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. And then you
Yeah.
pull a difference between readers and people who don't read very quickly, because the people who don't read, they tend to have their glass already full. They already know everything. They just watch a bunch of like stupid TikTok and they think they're well researched and well read when they're not. Clickbait
Yes.
on TikTok is nothing but garbage, if I'm perfectly honest, because you don't have context. And it's not because it's such like in a bite size, like a 1 minute clip. What are you going to learn from that? And how are you going to retain that information if you don't have the before and after? So,
Yeah.
but anyway, I mean, I'm not here to convince anyone how, to read, but what I'm saying is, going back to your point of books, it's exactly the same, connecting with obstacles. And obstacle is the only way. I read David Goggins' book back in, I think, 2017, 2018, when it first came out. Around that time, it might be 2019. I can't remember exactly. But I put an Instagram video up that, what is your relationship with your personal pain? Because everything good is on the other side of pain. If you're reading, if you're doing exams, it sucks. You have to read the books. You have to memorize a bunch of information. You have to understand. If you're doing anything a bit more complicated, like quantum physics or anything, just memorizing crap is not going to help you. So you're going to need to understand that at fundamental level and advanced level. So that would be on the other side. If you're looking to do anything difficult. If you're looking to build big muscles, okay, so how does hypertrophy happen in your body? You need to go to the gym, you need to break your muscles, and then through trauma, right? And then as they break, you refuel amino acids in order for the muscles to actually get bigger and stronger over time. And 5, 6 years later into training, you're like, now you have got this great shape to your body. Even pain of not only doing what you need to be doing, but doing what you shouldn't be doing is also a massive contributing factor. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't take any drugs. And yeah, has it always been easy? No, I have had drinks in the past. So I only like stopped drinking like a couple of years ago. But sometimes when you go out, you're like a bunch of friends are like, let's grab a drink. And I've got no interest in that at all, simply because I know what I'm leaving on the table. Some people are okay drinking. I'm not saying that, you should demonize it and stuff, but facts are that alcohol just destroys your body. It
Yeah.
just builds fat, kills muscle, and they're terrible for your gut microbiome. Yeah, if you need to relieve stress by having a beer, go for it. If you're thinking about it so much, just go ahead and do it. But just know the consequences of what harm you're doing to your body. If you've given it your best shot, your best try to actually look after your body as much as possible and your mind, then you don't have any excuses. So going back to the obstacle is the only way, I think absolutely is the only way. Even in relationships, it applies. I know we've spoken about this a couple of weeks ago when we had our podcast. The critical communication in relationships is difficult conversation. It's going to be a very uncomfortable, very awkward situations having those conversations. If you just want a happy life and just basically never discuss anything, intimacy related, finance related, communication related, talking about things you don't like, talking about things that you may actually find challenging in your relationship. It could be any of those things, and none of those situations are going to be a delight to discuss. But you have to, in order for you to get to the other side, in order for you to have a good relationship. So even that sucks, right? So what I'm saying is that pick your heart, because whatever you do is going to suck. Whatever you do is going to inevitably lead to some kind of bad, some kind of pain. So what pain do you want? Pick that. A lot of people, again, I see this a lot. They tend to uh, delay the instant pain, the pain right now, delay it, so they end up suffering much bigger later. But if
Yes.
you just tackle the crap now, then you don't have to tackle the bigger monster. There's Tony Robbins say this thing that if you have a situation which is like an insect, so it's a small annoying situation in your home, try to deal with it as quickly as possible. If you brush under the carpet, it's going to become a monster and eat your house. And that's what happens. It's happened to me many a times in personal relationships and business, you name it. And it's happened to many people. So I would say if you have a problem, talk about it and get to the solution of it. It's really interesting. In Africa, there are storms sometimes. So there are cyclones. And it's really fascinating. I was reading about this. So the cyclones, they move towards in a direction, and sometimes there are animal herds. You have sheep, cow, whatever, all type of animals. And what tends to happen is most of the animals run away from these cyclones because obviously they're big and scary and they kill people, kill animals and stuff. The bulls, they charge towards the storm. The bulls are the only animals who charge towards the storm and go right through it and end up on the other side. Even if you look at it from an evolutionary point of view, even bulls have the right idea to charge towards your problems, because the quicker you charge towards it, the quicker you get to the other side. Now, is that going to be painful? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're not having a great time whilst they're going through it, but it's much faster that way.
Yes, you also shared with me mantra which you have been listening for the last 10 years. First time when I heard it, it was like so dynamic. It took a hell out of me because I thought, what's going on? I thought it was going to be like a motivational and, kind of uplifting thing. But when you actually listened several times, I got the message where it was you have to expect a crisis because it's going to happen to you sooner or later. Especially the part I have 100 heart and 10,000 arms or something like that. It really kind of made me, realize that we as a human beings try to avoid a crisis because we think it's not going to happen to us. But in life, crises do happen to everyone.
Absolutely. I mean, again, as I said, that every person that I know personally, or I know of a person, everyone's got problems. Everyone's got problems. They might not ever tell you about it. They might demonstrate their life to be absolutely perfect on Instagram. Everyone's got issues. So, it's up to you if you just basically accept the law of the universe. Everyone's going to have problems. Your problems are your problems. They might be big, they might be small. There's no comparison to anybody else. I had my issues. Yeah, okay, there were difficult situations, but so do other people have their issues. And all you got to do is just basically take one step ahead of the one before and just keep going forward. The moment you stop is the moment you actually start to have an issue. I'm not saying don't take any time off. Sometimes you're so burnt out that your body and your brain does need that one day off. I completely get it. I'm not saying, neither am I suggesting to anyone that you should go, all guns blazing, all out, train 24/7, work 24/7. That's just stupidity. But what you have to do is you have to actually find for your personal self, you have to find optimal, what is the optimal formula for you. So for me, I'll give you a very quick example. For me, 12 hours working 6 days a week works really well. And I have 3 focus periods, so 4 hours 3 times a day. That tends to work really well 6 days a week. And then one day I don't even like, there's nothing work related. Even I have stuff to do, I'm just completely switched off from that. From
Yeah.
workout point of view, I am averaging right now about 3 to 4 times max per week, because my goals are not for me to actually get bigger or stronger or to actually, just do something crazy transformation or be doing this in a professional capacity. For me personally, I want to look the way I do. I want to remain healthy and I want to keep what I have in terms of my shape and my fitness levels and stuff. And for me, the 3 to 4 times is pretty good. So sometimes it's finding your formula, which is optimal. By the way, optimal is often confused with maximum, and that is not the same thing, not at all. Because if we talk about maximum amount of work, I have friends who are professional athletes. They don't train 7 days. They don't even train 6 days. They train 5 days. Most of their time is spent recovering, right? It's
Yes.
what happened in the kitchen. It's like how many hours you sleep at night. It's like what kind of supplementation are you taking? What kind of things are you doing to actually support your stress levels? It's all of those micro data points that actually combine in your epigenetic framework to then subsequently have that outcome that you're looking for. But sometimes I see people burning like stick both ends in a crazy capacity, and I'm just not a fan of that at all. Because if you are going to try to listen to these absolute imbeciles on Instagram, you have no idea. By the way, most of these guys, they have no idea what these like absolute imbeciles, crazy people on Instagram they're taking. Either they are or not taking steroids. You don't know their lifestyle. You don't know their stress levels. You don't know what supplements are they on. You don't know if their businesses are ethical. You don't know how much money they actually have in their accounts. You don't know anything. You don't know their family structure. You don't know their relationship structure. You don't know anything. All you
Yeah.
know is a 5%, if that max, of their stupid life that they portray as a trailer on Instagram in order for you to believe that they're awesome and you're shit. And then a lot of people try to copy that. Now, I'm not saying everybody is doing that. There are a lot of good names out there as well who actually do dish out good, great advice. But there is so much, because what actually catches your eye is that crazy clowning, that peacock, right? And the guy who's basically got every single thing that you can dream of, and got a six pack, and he's 6'4", and he's driving like 50 different cars. And he's got like a phenomenal physique and a phenomenal face and a great hairline and traveled around the world, billions of dollars, insane businesses and stuff like that. What you don't know. You have no idea. Stop watching that crap. Stop watching athletes. Stop watching football. If your life is watch you. They're not watching you. They are making millions, like the athletes that you're watching. I had this conversation a couple of weeks back at the gym. This kid came up to me, and he's a good kid, they're like 22 years old, I think, about 22, 23. And he's talking about like there was some football game on, some stupid football game on, and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so upset. You know, can you believe that happened?" And I don't watch football. Look, I have nothing against people who watch football. I understand the whole cultural impact of it, the camaraderie, the belonging, and all of that crap. I get it. It's the same as religion. But what I said to him, I was like, "Oh, that's cool, man. I mean, like, are you like, how much money did you make off that game?" He was like, "What you mean? I don't bet." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, yeah, they're making millions playing that, and you're not. And you've told me that you're like nowhere near where you need to be physically, financially." Right? You're 22, you're kind of like dabbling, procrastinating, like literally for the last like 2 years I've known you for that. Should I do this or should I not do this? Should I post my content online? Should I not? I was like, who are you watching? Why are you watching these monkeys? Why? Why? They don't even know you exist, dude. So anyone's personal transformation, anyone's personal growth is purely determined on them. It's full 100% accountability. I again have a lot of clowns that I've known in the past who actually say exactly what's coming out of my mouth. Take full accountability. Read Jocko Willings. Full accountability. Everything is your fault. Da 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 da. And their life, and they're living in their mom's basement or their mom's house. What are you doing? If you're like you have such a good brain where you know what to do, right? If you know what to do, and your life is but your actions are zero, yet you know what to do. What's going on? So regurgitating some crap that you heard on Instagram or on podcast and actually doing it in real life are two different things. And this all comes down to an ultimate accountability of actually staring at yourself in the mirror to say, okay, am I where I need to be? No. What do I need to do to actually put myself aggressively in positions where I actually go towards that, whatever I want aggressively? Start to actually have that conversation, which is going to suck, but the sooner you have that conversation, the quicker it is. So yeah, sorry about the tangent, but yeah, I see that to be a massive issue right now in personal growth space.
So how can they find that purpose? So they know exactly what they need to do.
Look, I think it's overcomplicated in the media space again, thanks to TikTok and social media. Like it's just too many directions people are recommending you to. Ultimately, what you should be doing is you should be looking at yourself to actually establish what are your skills. What are you good at? Maybe you're good in speaking to people. That means that you may be good in sales, personal relationships. All businesses around the world are based on human emotion understanding and driving people or connecting with people and impacting their decision making for their benefit. Because a lot of people they kind of like dabble in this space and they don't really know what they want, whether that's buying a car. That's why you have car salesmen, or buying a house. So it's basically holding their hand, taking them through that journey, not pushing them or forcing something down their throat, saying that you basically help them to make a decision which they are unable to. That's why you have salespeople, right? Real sales, ethical sales. That's what. So I think what
Yeah.
you need to establish is: are you good in that? Are you not good in that? Are you suck at talking to people? Okay, no worries. What are your strengths? Are you good at paperwork? Are you good in compliance? No, you suck at that too. Okay. Are you good at taking pictures? No, that's pretty shit too. Okay. Well, there must be something, one thing that you are kind of good at. Okay, through if you're in your late 20s, in your 30s, early 30s, whatever, wherever you are, you figure out what are you good at. Now, if you are one of those individuals that you just are not good at anything, you don't have to be great, by the way. You just have to be good, and you just have to have an interest in that, right? If you're
Mm.
not good at anything, then maybe it's a good idea, instead of watching TikTok and Instagram, why don't you take a pen and paper out and start to write down all the brain traffic that comes to your head on a paper to say, okay, what do I like to do? What's my passion? Again, a lot of garbage advice online where people are saying, don't do what you want to do, otherwise you will never basically be successful because it's just a hobby. Right. So you have a lot of
Yes.
people like Hormozy, which I actually, I respect him, and and I agree with a lot of his content, Alex Hormozy. But the problem is that you listen to him and then you listen to 50 other people who are saying, do what you're passionate about and X, Y, and Z. There's too much information, but think about it. Pull away from all that crazy, pull away from all that traffic, and just realize this one thing. What makes common sense? If you start to, in this attention economy where your attention is like literally worse than a damn goldfish, what are you likely to stick with? Something that you like, or something that just makes money and you absolutely hate and you want to pull your eyeballs out? Which one? Take a guess. Common sense. I mean, a 5-year-old, the kid can potentially answer this, right? But if you're in
Yes.
your 30s or 40s, come on. Which one are you're going to see through the one that you actually are interested in?
Yes.
Thankfully, due to the decentralization of entrepreneurship in a way that it's very accessible for people to actually now make money online, easier than ever before. Whatever your skill is, you can monetize that online, 50x than previous opportunities. Until you build a name for yourself, where you start to get recognized and then people pay you for, whatever you're good at. Whether that's photography, it's going to the gym, telling people how to eat, telling people how to invest, telling people how to buy houses, telling people how to buy cars, whatever it may be. So that's where you need to be. That's where you need to focus on. Because look, for all I know, and most people know, is we're only here once, right? So you
Yeah.
might as well just do something that you actually like and then learn business to monetize it and to actually apply business ethics to that, monetize it, and then literally refine your craft. Now,
Yeah.
start there. That's where you start. But I'm not saying stick to that for the rest of your life. Look, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, of course, you had to be that person, that guy, the investment guy or the mortgage guy or the photographer dude or X, Y, and Z. You don't have to do that. You can actually refine your crafts, make money, learn yourself, explore ideas. Where else are your interests? What else would you enjoy doing? Is there better money somewhere else? And once you have actually created a business and you created some money, some financial freedom for yourself, where you pay your own bills, where your mom is not paying for your bills anymore, okay? Where your dad is not paying
Yes.
for your bills. Once you have gotten to that point where you are responsible for your own bills, all own living, right? Rather than being like a 35-year-old child, or
Yeah.
worse in a lot of cases. If that's where you start, then you at least are producing money that you can actually push yourself into ultimate accountability, where you start to become accountable for your own life expenses. That's a very good thing, because then it comes across as pressure to many people, but it's actually a really good thing, because pressure can actually make you do things which are out of your comfort zone, and you'll be so surprised what human animal is capable of. So I think that's a good starting point, and then you refine your craft, so you can either stick to that, or you have other options of deviating into different places, deviating different, just very similar to a lot of my dentist friends have gone into facial aesthetics now, and they are absolutely crushing it. So I think it just depends on where your interests are at the point of when you are making a decision, but make a damn decision. Procrastinating on something and having an ego kills more people than cancer and diabetes put together. So just make a damn decision. Just move. Even if it's a wrong decision, take the damn decision, because you're going to learn twice as fast. You're going to learn, and now that's no longer an option. So you're going to go in the right direction for the rest of your life. But just make a decision, because standing in the same place, thinking or living a life of misery is just going to not fulfill you at all. And again, here's another a very interesting point. So you have three categories. You have unhappy, miserable, then you have happy, and then you have fulfilled. Here's where majority of the population is going wrong. They are unhappy, unfulfilled, right? So they're in the worst category. And what they tend to do is they tend to dive into the middle one now and then, just to feel okay to survive. Let me
Mm.
explain what that looks like. So you are unhappy with your marriage, ultimately. You're unhappy with your relationship. You're unhappy with where you live. You're unhappy with what you drive. It's not about material things, but I'm just giving you an example. You're unhappy with your relationships. You're unhappy about your friends. And what you tend to do, and you're unhappy about your job, whatever. What you tend to do, being unhappy, is on the weekend now, or now and then, you dive into happy frame to never actually come out of that, excuse my French, shit structure, right? And what happens when you don't come out of this is you never actually go towards fulfillment. You never explore being fulfilled. And fulfillment is where the magic happens, whether that's in a relationship, whether that's in business, whether that's in personal growth, business growth, emotional growth, spiritual growth. That's where you want to be. But you will never get there if you stay in unhappy and dabble on the weekends or now and then into happy and go right back to your unhappy frame. You have to make choices to actually go towards that fulfillment state. How'd you do that? I don't know. Personal situations, personal examples. You have to find a way on how you find fulfillment. Sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes you can't find optimal fulfillment for your partnership in a relationship in that given time. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it doesn't exist. Sometimes you have bad situations, medical problems. Sometimes you may have lost someone who provides that fulfillment, right? There's so many different situations. It doesn't mean that you are not able to find fulfillment in life in other areas, right?
Mm.
So just be honest with yourself, and if you don't have that, if you're not able to find that fulfillment in your relationship, okay, no worries, that's fine. Just be okay with it, but then find fulfillment somewhere in your life. Find that ecstasy, find that magic somewhere. Because if that fulfillment doesn't exist anywhere in your life, you're just waiting to die in the least painful way rather than living. And that's not a good place to be. I would also say your kids don't give you fulfillment. They make you happy, okay? Don't try to put what you need to do as a human. You are a person. God made you one person, right? He's given you two arms. Hopefully, people listening to this, they have the eyes, you have the mouth that functions, you have the nose, you have the ears, you have two legs, right? And some people might not have this. So, but that's where the perspective comes from for those people. But most people I see who lack perspective have all of these things, right? Like biologically speaking. So where they are messing up, and again, I'm just basically saying that, listen, you look, do whatever you want. I'm not no one's mentor here, or neither am I, do I want to be, but I found that you are the close the more you say, "Oh, my children are my ultimate, fulfillment." But what about you? Are you on this planet just to make sure that your children go to school and everything else? Be honest with yourself. That how are you serving? How are you fulfilling? How are you leaving a footprint on this planet? Are you doing your best? Are you doing your best that when you go upstairs and you talk to your creator, he's going to be like,
Mm.
you did good. Well done. I gave you all these blessings. Or are you going to have a conversation to say, okay, you did good with your kids. Well done. Good job. Awesome. Let's look at the other areas, right? Let's look at what you did with your time. And if you, oh, okay, so you were spending on average 3 hours a day on Instagram, by the way, Sam, or you were spending 2 hours looking at, girls on TikTok or stupid X, Y, and Z with every blessing that you've been given. That's how you say thank you. You know what I mean? So I
Yes,
think that that level of perspective and that level of accountability is very much needed. I'm not saying people to not have fun, but just be responsible as an adult. Be accountable for at least your part that you need to do for the planet.
yes. Be honest with yourself, yeah, first of all.
Yes.
So my husband always talks about Japanese philosophy where it goes like you have to do what you love, you have to create what people need, and people are actually prepared to pay for it.
Yeah.
So when I look at my husband, I can see he absolutely loves what he does. And when he goes to work every day, he says it doesn't feel like work for him.
Yeah.
It's like skipping. So that gave me a lot of perspective in life to rethink about my purpose as well. I know I have done financial planning. I did it very well. And because he mentions this philosophy so many times, it stuck in my mind. And now I'm thinking that what I usually do, I love self-development books. I just read them like no tomorrow. And I always have got 4 or 5 books by my bedside, which are waiting for me to be read. I probably order, I don't know, books on Amazon very often
Yeah.
because it is something I really enjoy. And even now, talking to you, hearing your story about challenges, about obstacles you had to face, this even doesn't feel like work. I know it's, I don't know, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, but I'm still here and I'm really enjoying our conversation, Sam.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I agree. I think this is one of the reasons why we connect. I think that mantra that I sent across to you is actually talks about the warrior ethos, which connects you to your brothers and sisters in this life. And some share that warrior ethos, that code, or some don't. And inevitably it sounds aggressive warrior ethos, but all it is you lead your life with love, love for family, love for what's good, and love for your tribe and love for the good. So I think you have that. One thing I would say about you is you have all these books that you read, and you are ordering all these books and books on the side. One thing I would say about you is you are actually a very good book doer rather than just a good book reader. And most people, again, I'm just saying it, and this may not go down well with most people, but listen, hey, I'm just here to, share my opinion, which is that most people actually are just good book readers. They're theorists. They have theories. You don't have theories. You actually put everything in your life as an action. Try it. Some things work, some things don't. All right, fine. You know what? So I learned again. Not a big deal. We're like empty cups. And this is one of the most
Yeah.
common thing that I've seen with the readers, that the more we read, the more we realize how much we don't know because we are inevitably monkeys. And this is the difference you're going to see with a lot of people who you don't actually connect with. You don't actually have the same energy. Their energy misaligned. You're just like, even if for some reason you've said yes to going out on a meal with them or connecting with them, or you're just like, oh, how do I cancel? You're not
Yeah.
looking forward to it because their energy is like, the cup is already full. They already like, everything about life. There's no perspective. There's no struggle. There's nothing new, and they know everything. Why to talk to someone who already knows everything? I put myself in a category that I know some things, but I don't actually know much. But that's what keeps us learning, I was talking to one of the guys at the gym a couple of days back, and he's in pretty good shape. And he was like, we're just catching up, and he was like, dude, yeah, I just, I'm just like always trying to change my body in this way, that way. I'm trying this and trying that. And by the way, this guy looks phenomenal, by the way. And I said to him that, dude, that's what keeps you looking the way you do, because you are constantly thriving and stretching your brain to actually see what else you don't know. And when you think you know everything, or when you keep doing stuff that doesn't work, that's just a recipe for disaster, right? For insanity. Just keep repeating the same wrong shit, expecting different results. I'm not saying, by the way, I was exactly that dude. And I've done that many times in different things in my life. But sometimes you need that, kick up the ass. For me, there were a few kicks, and then it takes time to wake up to what is actually the right direction. So yeah, I think you don't only deploy the knowledge that you learn from the books in theory. I think you make it actionable, which is phenomenal. That's one of the reasons why I keep rereading or keep re-listening to a lot of phenomenal books that I have, because for me it's like, those are gold mines. I would just listen to it, or I would just I would just pick it up right before bed. I would read a couple of pages, maybe 10, maybe two, maybe one line sometimes. It doesn't matter. But it's like just pure gold constantly going into your brain. I think another thing with books is what's so awesome is you are shaping your proximity by the people that you just simply don't have access to. And because
Yes.
these people, frankly, they are of a different caliber of people. You don't have access to them. Sorry, you haven't made it to the point where either you can invent technology to go back and speak to Mandela, unfortunately, or if you're reading a writer right now and you don't have access to him, you don't have access to that person. Just be okay with that. But their book you have access to, right? Where they've literally poured all of their good stuff. And look, a lot of people say, yeah, books are, people write books to sell and X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but think about it. Books are sold by book reviews. More book sales are done by more book reviews, right? Why are people going to give book reviews high rating if the book sucks? So the book has to be good in order for it to do really, really well. So the writers are they know this, right? They're not stupid people. How many people do we know who actually go ahead and write books? Not many. Why? Because they've done something which is very difficult, or understood a concept so incredibly well and put that into the book, that you are now able to literally drink that juice that they've squeezed over 50 years or whatever their lifetime, right? Now,
Yes.
here's where it becomes gold for you. You are able to shape your proximity by reading books if your social dynamics and your proximity around you absolutely suck. And what I mean by this is, if you don't have friends that who, they are where you need to be or where you're trying to go, or they actually constantly push you up and drive you up, right? If you don't have those friends, that family, or that partner with you, if you don't have those people around you, that's one area, right? So what you are able to do is you're able to now grab these books or listen to these podcasts or listen to the books and change your proximity, because your thoughts are being impacted by your proximity, and your proximity can be these books and these amazing writers, right? So pick what you want, pour it into your brain, pour it into your subconscious thought process. Subsequently, that dictates your behaviors. Your behaviors drive your action, and those actions produce result over time. So that's your formula. There you go. If your proximity sucks, everyone around you suck. Now, it might be the fact there is another possibility here that, again, I see a lot in people, is that proximity is, and the reason why their proximity is high is not because the people around them, they're just inevitably bad people? Absolutely not. But what makes those people bad proximity around you is they are not where you want to go, and you are in that relationship, a friendship or relationship or anything like that, just because you feel bad to not be friends with this person. You have to
Yes.
upgrade your friends. You have to change that circle, right? You can learn to love people from far. That's totally okay. But you need to get to that position where you actually start to have these honest conversations. Look at the 5 people in a month that you spend most of your time with. Oh, this is said so much now, overused in social media space. Everybody's talking about it, right? But what does that really mean? All right, so look at the 5 people that you spend time with, and then take an average of those 5 people. Are they where they need to be financially, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and everything else? And is that where you want to be, what you like, or you want to be like? If they're not like that, what you like, or they are not where you want to be, what you want to be like, cut them out. How many retries are you going to get? How many times are you going to be 38 or 26 again? So, and the older we're getting, the quicker the time is passing. So, what are you waiting for? Cut them out. Proximity.
Yes, yes. Talking about books, some 3 books came to my mind automatically. First one is Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I read when I was a teenager in Russian language. Then
Mhm.
I recently bought a copy for myself. I reread it in English, and it was such a great feeling because I know how to read in English and understand the book.
Yeah.
So I bought another one for my son. He just
Mm,
turned 16 as part of his birthday present. So I told him, son, when I was your age, I read this book, and
mm.
this book was very instrumental in my life. So here is a book. Please go ahead and just read it and let me what you think. So second book is recently I read, which is Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. And
Mhm.
third book is, of course, Obstacle is the Only Way, which is very
Yeah.
fresh to me, that I keep those 2 books by my bedside as well, because sometimes I just want to read the certain chapters where I made markers, for example. Yeah. Sometimes you just need a reminder because you may forget that part, which is very crucial, just to remind yourself that this is actually what it is. So what 3 books come to your mind as we speak?
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, and I would say Man's Search for Meaning. Man's Search for Meaning is amazing. Marcus Aurelius. I'll give you a breakdown of all 3 books. So the reason why Meditations by Marcus Aurelius is because I find it fascinating. It's actually his personal diary, which has been published into this phenomenal book that
Yes.
most people read. It's not an easy book to read, by the way, because anyone who doesn't even read a normal book, they're gonna find that very boring because it's not easy to understand the way it's written. But you can get copies of it, which has like even simplified the way it's written, so you really understand
Yeah.
what he's talking about. The concepts of that are really profound, and you really truly understand, the Stoic philosophy. What it actually means is not about, just perseverance. We're talking about, hard things, and people can sometimes misunderstand that because, Emperor Rome, super world's most powerful man, what worries does he have, and X, Y, and Z. I mean, like, there are much bigger problems and X, Y, and Z. But what that taught me is humility, because some of the things that actually jump out is Marcus had hired just a straight person, someone who was just a common man, to whisper in his ear to keep him humble endless times throughout the day, that you're just a man, and that kept him grounded. When he actually came into power, he gave half of the power away to his stepbrother, because although he didn't need to do that. Nobody forced him to do it, but he did it because he understood the meaning behind having a structure of too much power means too much control, and he didn't want to be corrupted by that. So good lessons there. But the most powerful one is he lost a lot of children, through his lifetime due to plague. He came across massive financial difficulties in his time where he had to sell every single thing in his palace. So I think sometimes people who don't read that book, some lessons can be, they're like, yeah, I'm not going to connect with the guy who was the emperor of Rome. But if you read it, you can really understand the what it really means to persevere through those difficult times, which sometimes you can actually find a meaning in those situations when you read about someone's perspective. How do
Yes,
you wrap the things around? I think second book, Man's Search for Meaning, again, that's the greatest book that's given me the greatest perspective. Viktor Frankl, phenomenal book. I think it's sold like it's one of the most like profound books on the planet. And it's not actually a very big book. It's like very small read, to be honest, but it's phenomenal and
yes,
gives you perspective so strong, so powerful, because it talks about his perspective and how he needed to be evaluating micro situations which made a difference between living and dying. How much perspective was in that? What suffering really truly means. And not to spoil the book for many people, but the book starts with this, I think a couple of chapters into it, where they are on the train and they're heading towards Auschwitz, where the Nazi camp, where they basically concentration camp, where they're gonna like burn you. He doesn't know where the train is heading, but they know that train is heading somewhere not nice. Most of the family, friends, people, neighbors have been tortured and like killed. That he that's where they're coming from. Now they haven't eaten for days, they haven't had any water for days, it's cold as hell, and they have not slept. And they're on this journey and they know that they're heading towards something awful. So if you miss one night's sleep, if you miss it, you are not barely functional the next morning, like zero sleep. Imagine these people have been up for weeks, right? No food, no water, tortured, and they're on this train, right? This is how it starts. Now imagine being in that mind frame. And when the carriage opens, they are taking people out, and there's a guy in the end of that queue who's either sending people to the left or to the right, simply based on how they are walking and their facial expressions. What Viktor Frankl managed to establish in that time frame before he got to that guy Nazi camp, the like prison guard, is he's evaluating because he couldn't tell. Viktor Frankl couldn't tell what where these people are going, which one is a good or a bad cue. But what he managed to read in the body language of people is who seem weak and who seem a little bit like, they had a little bit strength, right? And they ended up literally sending like the people who were just done with life and just physically completely broken, mentally broken, to literally be torched alive. And the rest were going towards working, working for the camps, building things and that kind of thing. So to really, and this is just one. I mean, this is just one example, right? But there's like 10 other examples which are phenomenal. The last book that I actually, okay, so I will change. Look, I can give you like 50 book names right now, but I would change my last book. Although Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg is a phenomenal book because it teaches you the difference between evaluation and observation. And I think even when you're meditating, what really do truly matters, what really does truly matter when you are meditating is having, when you're trying to see your thoughts, is to stop even evaluating people, yourself, or things around you constantly, because it negates away from actually having that peace inside, because evaluation is very taxing. It's judgment. Where this becomes a problem is evolutionary psychology is geared us to actually evaluate situations. Where is the danger? But now there isn't much danger. There's no saber-tooth coming to eat you, right? So, but we're still in that mind frame because the brain hasn't evolved. So we're still trying to evaluate everything. This is where today's problems come from because we're constantly evaluating. As soon as we wake up, we evaluate ourselves. Okay, skin's looking bad. Okay, I'm looking good today. Okay, I look right. So our hair's not on point. Feeling a little bit fat. Okay, a little bit of water retention. Whatever the hell, you might actually wake up and be one of those guys or girls that, oh my God, today I look phenomenal. 20 out of 10, right? You might be one of those. I'm not like that's evaluation too. That's judgment too, because you're making a judgment. What tends to happen if, regardless of where you fall in that judgment category, right? Whether you're like you look like someone who's walked out of heaven or actual normal person, what happens is you are in a position then to subconsciously being in this program of evaluating every single thing around you, evaluating people, evaluating your partner, evaluating your job, evaluating the actions you take, evaluating and comparing. Because one of the best way of evaluation judgment is by comparison, right? And what happens when you start to do comparison between your husband and somebody else's husband? Bad idea. Worse off, what happens when you try to evaluate your partner, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, whatever, through Instagram? Take a guess what happens, right? So that's where evaluation is it's a nightmare. That's what the book teaches you, to simply replace that evaluation with observation. And there are like 100 examples of that. And that's where it's so powerful, because it gets really frustrating for people who are actually working with Marshall in this book, because they keep having to go through different exercises, and they're like, yeah, but I did evaluate that. He was like, no, in that communication, that was, or I did observe it. People are saying I observed him, or my answer is observatory. And he's given 20 different examples where it's not observation, it's evaluation, because he's still judging either yourself or the other person in that communication exchange. So that's very, very powerful book. The last book that I would say is Solve for Happy by Mo Goddard, which is one of the most phenomenal books I've ever read. Luckily for me, I was very lucky to read that book at the right time.
Yeah.
Favorite part of the book, again, I don't want to spoil it for people, is the God equation. For anyone who doesn't believe the creator, read that book and read the God equation, because he's mathematically broken it down how randomness is impossible. Evolution cannot be denied, because everything is evolved. My t-shirt's evolved from something, so has this phone, so are the cameras and the sofas, and we have. But so that's undeniable. But the
Yeah.
mathematical God equation is phenomenal. It's mind blowing, because it simply breaks down how you're simply not able to create even one cell in our body. Because the cell in our body have a protein sequencing code, and that sequence cannot be replicated, because how long it would take the randomness to replicate that sequence is going to be a lot longer than this planet Earth has been established for in existence, which is 4.5 billion years. So you simply are able to come to that very simple conclusion that billions of people argue about and kill each other over, that there is a, you can call him God, you can call him the source, you can call him whatever you want, but that cannot be disputed. Now let's move on to what works for you, right? So yeah, so those are 4 books that I just highly, highly recommend. Any person
Yes.
who just doesn't want to read, they just don't want to, just listen to these books. But if you don't listen to these books, you don't read these books, and you think you're awesome and you're perfect, believe me, you're not. And you're missing out on some gold that is literally accessible to you through your phone.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you, Sam, because I've got meditations on the go, which
Mhm.
is, as I think, modern library because of the language difficulties. I researched which one was easier to read or easier to digest. And another one, Soul for Happy, also I've read by that guy, where
Mo got
he,
at. Yeah.
I think he lost his son, yeah?
Correct. Yeah.
And then he was, trying to cope with his existence. So I definitely love that book as well, because again, it is real stories, and
Yeah.
When you actually read the book, you are making an effort, you spending time, and that's why it sinks in your head. But if you are just watching something, let's say program or whatever, it is likely not to sync with you because you're actually not making an effort. You're just sitting and watching. Of course, you're not going to forget everything, but I find personally when I read actual physical book in paper, like an old style, yeah, that is where I get my buzz out because that's how I can really understand the story in the book and try to kind of implement in my daily life because the challenges are everywhere. Wherever you wake up, that's it. You have to brush your teeth, you have to get ready, you have to do school run and go to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything challenge, isn't it? So that's why books definitely massively have helped me. And of course, like you say, people around you are also very important. For example, my husband also constantly reads all the books I think you have read, like Sapiens and the other books you mentioned, he have read as well. So yeah, definitely. I totally enjoyed our session again, Sam. I can't express my gratitude and my honor to be able to speak to you and to listen to you. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. Let's do round 4 soon.
Yes, absolutely. All right
All
then.
right.
Thank you
All
so
right. God
much,
bless.
Sam.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye.
Bye.